I'm Anne Moir, and I'm a neuropsychologist, and my big idea is that I want to make the whole of the business world gender aware, so that they understand men and women. You know, you have a body sex, you have a brain sex too, and it doesn't necessarily match your body sex. By brain sex I mean that men and women, their brains are biologically different, they run on different fuels, we think, we respond, we react to the world in different ways, and so we bring different skills to the workplace. Well, the problem with the feminized early education is, you land up with fewer boys now achieving and going to university, getting far worse exam results, all this sort of is filtering through. So women are coming out of university with much better qualifications, so they're landing in the business world with much better qualifications. But having said that, the business world is still very, very male-minded, very male-structured, because that's, women didn't used to work, and now, of course, they do in their thousands and millions now. But the working world of the male is still not good for him, I don't think, either. It's very structured, it's very dominant male, very alpha male at the top who's the boss and everybody else has to kowtow. It's changing, it's not all like that, of course, in business. There's lots of businesses that don't do it that way. But if you have a structure where you've got a dominant male, essentially you're blocking the creativity of the rest of the team because of the way the male brain works. He's very focused, very one-dimensional, and his way is best. And there's a recent study done by MIT that looked at team intelligence, group intelligence, and what they found was, if you took individual intelligence, and you'd think that the average intelligence of the group would be what the group intelligence was. Absolutely not. The group intelligence depended on the more women you had in the group, the higher the intelligence of the group. And they discovered the reason for that was the actual team for solving problems and innovative ideas. They gave them all these tests, was more sensitive to other people's opinions, and therefore there was more listening going on, more creativity in terms of putting everybody's ideas into the pot. Now men can do that, there's no question. I'm not saying men can't do that, they do. It's just that within the modern way, or the old-fashioned business model, means that the vast majority of creative ideas don't make it into discussion, and it limits things. So the male world of business is limiting the male just as much as it was limiting the female, and it has to change, and it will change, and is changing. I think the future of neuroscience in business, it will be really necessary for the 21st century. If we are going to survive and stay competitive in the 21st century, if we can understand the opposite sex in terms of how our brains work, we make the most creative, innovative and fantastic teams. The skills are so complementary. And so for me, for 21st century business, you need the male and female brains and an understanding of those differences and putting teams together that have an innovative mix of brain types. Neuroscience can inform, and we can learn so much about how the brain works. And lots of the things we do in business, we would do a lot better if you used the neuroscience and its understanding of the brain in a practical way. I can give you an example. Creativity, how we create, can be dampened down by thinking. This bit of the brain is your prefrontal cortex, your thinking bit, your planning bit, and we try and do everything through that, but it's only 5% of your brain potential. It's not very creative. So you have to learn, it's the policeman, you have to learn to shut down the policeman in order to use the other 90%, 95% of your brain to bring up new ideas and be innovative. And there's lots of tricks to do that. There's lots of ways of how you can make yourself more creative. For starters, you don't sit in a business meeting and brainstorm, actually. It won't work, really. You actually ought to get the team. And you don't do problem solving, you do solution-focused stuff. Problem solving shuts down another bit of the brain and you don't come up with new ideas. Problem solving sends you down the old trammeled routes in your brain. If you say, instead of saying, why are we making so little, why are we selling so few objects to such and such a group? You say, what about this group? How can we encourage them to buy our products? And you look at it in a different light, and that's more creative. But how do you shut down that old policeman? Well, you go and you break habits. Essentially, it's learning how to break habits. So every day, instead of going the same route, you do a different route to work. You brush your teeth with the wrong hand, and you break your habits. So you're loosening up the brain. And then the other way of doing it is what they call mindfulness. Mindfulness is brilliant for creativity. And that's essentially stopping the thinking brain by being mindful of everything you do. So when you're brushing your teeth, you really think about the feel of the toothpaste, the taste of the toothpaste, the sound of your brush. And you literally stop the thinking brain. You shut it down. And that's how you create. That's when you come up with your best ideas. I mean, everybody knows, don't they? You come up with your best ideas in the shower and things like that. Well, the reason is you've shut down the thinking brain. But we're beginning to understand it now for neuroscience. And of course, there are differences in the thinking brain between men and women. So women have a much more networked brain, so they're more likely to be more creative in that lateral, odd, pulling in ideas from all over the place than a guy is, unless he does that sort of brain training and loosens up his brain. Because, old style business is very much about thinking it through bit by bit, sequence by sequence, little box by little box. We've got to get outside the box. So for both men and women, I think neuroscience is going to be absolutely wonderfully innovative and exciting, We're going to be able to do the most amazing things by understanding how the brain really works. There are lots of ways of making your brain creative. Essentially, what you're trying to do is to get it out of using... We get sort of tram lines in the brain, because the brain is very efficient and organised. It likes to go the route it knows. But you've got to push it out of the tram lines to be creative. And in order to do that, you've got to make both sides of the brain really active. They used to say it was right brain creativity. You need both sides. So there's some, what I call cross-brain training exercises. They're very simple. You essentially have to do a different thing with your left and right side of your body. Your left side controls the right side of the brain, your right side controls your left. So if, for example, you stand up straight and you move this arm forward and that arm backward, but you have to keep doing it the same way, like this. It's actually really difficult to do it. You want them to go in the same way, but you do it like, and there's, that one of patting your head and rubbing your tummy. Well, if you do that, you pat your head and then you have to stop and rub your tummy the other. It's really difficult, but the more you do that, the more you're training left and right to get active at the same time, which is crucial for being creative.